Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Studio 78 podcast. I am your host, Nache from NacheSnow.com. Welcome. So excited to have you guys back. I know that you guys love that last episode because I saw a ton of traffic from it. So glad to be back. Glad that you guys loved the last guest. And if you haven't already listened to my episode with Lena, no worries. Just go back and listen to it after you listen to this one. Anyway, for the show notes for this page, you can go over to NacheSnow.com/141 and all the notes will be over there and the links to Miss Elisha's page. And today I have on Elisha McGhee from page 11 Stationery. Love her. As soon as I saw her products in Target, I was just like, oh my God, this is crazy. Well, I was following her on Instagram first, and then I saw her products in Target and in Home Goods. She's also in TJ Maxx and Marshalls. And it just felt like so good to see someone that I was following like in the store. And I really wanted to have her on to talk to her about her journey and how that happened. So great story there. But anyway, before we jump into this amazing episode with Elisha, just a few housekeeping things. Remember, sharing is caring, my friends. If you love this episode, please share away. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, if you just take a few minutes and go over there and rate me 5 stars, I'd greatly appreciate that. And no, I'm just kind of getting back after being off for some months, so it really does help me out. And if you would love to leave a comment, I welcome that too. Listening on YouTube, give me a thumbs up. Wherever you're listening, please make sure you subscribe. Thank you for coming back, and thank you to welcome rather, to all the new people that have joined the Studio 78 community. Okay, last but not least, because this is, of course, right before the holidays. So if you celebrate Christmas, you won't get the Life Cleanse journal in time for Christmas. But if you want it as a gift, and it's okay that you get it after Christmas, please make sure that you go over to dreamsplansideas.com, my storefront, and buy the Life Cleanse journal for someone. It takes people through 10 areas of their lives and has them answer questions and create action steps and goals. So please do that. I also have a digital version available. So if you want to give someone the digital version for the holidays, just let me know. But that's also available on the website. Okay, enough of me. Let's chat with Miss Elisha. Hello, Elisha. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
So I'm really excited to have you on. And it's so funny because I don't know about you, but like when I follow people on Instagram and then when I see their stuff in stores, I kind of act like I know them while I'm in the store. So I'll be with friends and I'm like, I know her. And they're like, but do you know her? I'm like, I follow her on Instagram.
At this point, that is what knowing means in this generation. If you follow them, you know them. So.
You know that, right? So whenever I see your products, I'm just like, I just get a little excited because I just love seeing women businesses out there, especially in major stores. It just warms my heart. So I just can't wait to dig into how you got there. But before we do, can you just tell the listeners just a little bit about you and your background?
Yeah, so I started Page 11 Paper Goods back in October of 2016. It was actually something that I had thought about for probably about 3 years prior to that, honestly. And just doubt, not realizing what my worth was at the time, kind of had me stuck in a position of this is what I want to do. This is the products that I want to have, but I wasn't sure that I had the capability to do that. And so I actually sat on the ideal for a couple of years before I really sat down and said, okay, 2016, New Year's resolutions, New Year, new me. I'm really going to do it this time. And so I sat down and I said, no matter what happens this year, I'm going to at least try to start my business and get at least one product out. And so I always laugh because it's funny how God listens to what you say and tests you on those words. So right after that February, I found out I was pregnant with my first child.
Oh, wow.
And so, so I thought about it for a second. I'm like, okay, I've said I'm going to do this business, and now I'm pregnant, and this can go one way or another. I can either continue to put it off, or I can do both things at the same time. And I actually launched my business on October 11th of 2016, and my son was born October 12th of 2016.
Wow, yeah, because I was
So
like thinking the timing of that. I was like, that it seems like it was really close.
exactly. Yeah. Definitely not what I planned on happening. I thought I had a few more weeks after launch before he was going to come. So I was thinking I'll get things set up. I'll get situated before I have him and take a quick hiatus. But all within the same 24 hours that happened. It's literally been a growing experience with both. I always say between my son and my business, they've both shown me my growth, if nothing else. But I've definitely found a different reasoning for my business. Honestly, I've started it just to really help people become organized, to think about their goals, to know what their visions are, and to really follow through with that. Because I think a lot of times we get where we have those New Year's resolutions or even those new goals, and they seem so overwhelming when we don't really know how to break them down, how to organize our thought process, how to even make sure that our day to day is even in line with those things that we're trying to accomplish. And so that was the main reason as to why I even wanted to start the business. But I've found that even I, in that moment, needed more than I
Oh,
thought I did.
right.
um,
Yeah.
so it shifted a little bit to where, I am my target market in some situations. And so it really helped me to zone into what was important. Obviously, for me as a mom, as a business owner, at that time, I was still working full time. So even as a full time worker, as a wife, there was a lot of things that went into that. There was a lot of responsibilities, definitely holding a lot of hats on my head. So even with my products, I would look into that being from my point of view, what do I need? What will help
Mm-hmm.
me better organize myself? What will help me stay motivated and intentional in my day to day? What will help me not forget what my goals are? Because obviously, even just being a mother or a wife, there's things that sometimes we do things for everyone else and ourselves are last. So even thinking about it in that aspect is like, what can I do to make sure I don't lose myself in the process? And so a
Mm-hmm.
lot of my products, I feel like after that, start zoning into what is being intentional, what is thinking about your mindset, what is the things that you can help organize your day so that you're not overwhelmed at the end of the day. I mean, it's been a journey. It definitely has, but it's been very rewarding in that same aspect.
Yeah. And then just curious, so what was your first product? What did you launch with? Product or products?
Yeah, so I launched with our weekly planner. That was the
Mm.
first thing that I launched in October of 2020 or 2016. And it was so crazy because even then, like I said, there were so many things that held me back from the thought process of actually getting there.
Mm.
For instance, I wasn't a graphic designer. So when I would think about having these products, I was like, well, who's going to design them? Like, you can't do
Right.
that. Why would you start a business with designing materials that you can't design? And so even with that, it took me stepping back from that and saying, okay, I can have a business, I can learn how to do this. And even in that process, I can still get started. So even with that first product, I had another graphic designer help me with that, but I also was very hands on with how I wanted it to be. So it was still my design, still my input, but someone else had to do it. And so even within that, I was making sure that I was learning over those years, the next couple of years, how to be a graphic designer. What do I need to learn? Which programs do I need to learn? How do I get that skill under my belt so that now most of the time we're doing a lot of the designs in house, but that's not how it started out. And I think
Mm-hmm.
even that thought process for some people is, if I don't have it all together, then I can't start.
Right.
And so even for me, it took a little bit to understand, like, you can get started. It just may not be the way you want to get started. But you can definitely get started and change and grow and develop along the way. But I think those first steps of even just getting through the door and actually saying, okay, I have this business, I have this thought, let me at least get started, gets you to a point where now you have a responsibility to yourself, at least, to learn the rest of those things that come along with
Of course, since we're talking about all things organization, I have to
it.
ask, you find out you're pregnant, you have this idea for this planner, You're also working full time.
Mhm.
So, how did you meet your deadline? How did you plan out your time in order to get it done?
Yeah, so once things shifted, I realized, okay, I have these 8 months left, and reality is I'm pretty sure I knew it was gonna go faster than I thought it was. And so what I actually did was sit down and did a little bit of a quarterly jot down and say, "This is what needs to get done in the next couple of months," and looked at it from that view. So I would do probably 2 to 3 months at a time, just depending on, um, what was all going to happen, but I would just write down in these next 2 months, I need to do these five top things. That way, I'm not looking at the whole rest of the year thinking, oh my God, this is so overwhelming.
Mm.
And the great thing about it is, no one else really knew what my timeline was. So at any given point, that timeline could have changed.
Right.
I was trying to hold myself accountable because I knew that I had held on to this for so many years prior that I'm really going to do it this time. And I had to set a date for myself, if no one else, that this is what was going to happen. But I really did. I broke down those huge goals into smaller monuments. And so I only looked at probably about 5 or 6 things every 2 months and said, okay,
Mm.
I need to get this done. I need to get this done. Can I break this down? Even if some of them seemed a little bit bigger, how can I break these down even smaller? So not even at a month level, looking at it at a weekly level, looking at it at a daily level. What can I do today just to get this one task started? And just really understanding what is my time management thought process in that. What can I really get done? Because again, I think there's so many things that are going through your head, especially starting a business, that it can become overwhelming. It can seem like it's not going to happen. It can seem like, there's so many things you need help. You need to ask people for things. There is just a lot going on. And I think a lot of times you can get overwhelmed with even thinking about the additional tasks that are to come. So when you start breaking down things and just keeping it very minimal, it helps you to focus your mindset and say, okay, let's just say these next 2 months, we're only going to do marketing. What do we need to do for marketing?
Mhm.
We need to figure out how to use whatever platform we're going to use to do our marketing campaigns on. We need to know who is our target market. What are these people? We need to understand what they're using. If they are already using planners at that time, what are they using and why? So there were things that I broke down and said, I'm only going to focus on this aspect of it so that I don't get overwhelmed. And at the same time, understanding that if for whatever reason my time did shift, because like you said, I was working full time, I was pregnant. Thankfully, I had a good pregnancy, but let's just say if I would have gotten sick or something like
Mhm.
that would have shifted everything.
You're
And I
right.
had to keep mindset. That's okay. It's okay to have a plan and change it. The problem is never having the plan.
Mhm.
So I think even within that is obviously have the plan, try to write it out, try to go as best about it as you can, but days change things. One day something can happen and it changes everything else. And so you have to be able to still understand how to shift, and that's okay, and it's gonna happen, and it's definitely gonna happen even after you start the business.
Right,
um
right.
it shifts every day, but you just never know, so you have to just have that mindset of, this is my plan, this is what I want to see happen, but if I have to change it or develop it into something else, then I'm okay with that.
My thing is just don't stop. Even if you have to
Correct.
slow down a little bit, because
Hmm.
what I've found through the years in talking to some folks is they get overwhelmed because maybe they're trying to do too much and then they just give up. And I'm like, don't give up. Just shift things a little bit. Slow it down.
Right.
Don't be so hard on yourself. And I love like what you're saying. Break it down into digestible chunks, right? Like maybe 6 months is too aggressive for whatever project. Maybe you need a year and that's okay. And another question I have to ask because I always get these questions. It's either about self-publishing books, where to go, or how to find manufacturers for products. So, how did you handle that? Because this was your first product. And so I know some
Right.
people will create their own planners in house, buy really nice printers and they have the machines and everything where you can do the coiling or what have you. What did you decide to do initially? How did you, go about figuring out how to actually get a physical product created?
Yeah, so initially, like I said, I think a lot of that manufacturing part of it was completely blinding to me. I had no idea. I didn't even know at that time that there were people that were binding things at home. I found that out later on. I wish somebody would have told me. But
I'm
I
like,
was
they got all kind of
yeah,
stuff out here.
a gadget for everything. But I think had I known that prior to, I probably would have went that route, honestly.
I
But
see.
I didn't know that. What I did was I actually started going around to some local printers, just seeing what type of binding they did. So what I did was went to
Mm.
the stores, found some planners or journals that I liked the sizing or I liked the binding that they had. And I went around to printers and say, hey, do y'all do this? If you do, can I get samples? How much does it cost? What does it look like? And even in that aspect, again, that pricing, that price point is something that you don't think about in the very beginning. You're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do planners and I'm gonna print them, and it's like, well, who's gonna pay for them?
Right.
But you really have to start thinking about what is the quality I want? What type of paper do I want? Again, all this stuff I had no idea about. I knew what I liked as a consumer, but
Mhm.
as a business owner, that changes. And not significantly, but when it starts being, oh, well, what I really like costs this much. And what I really
Right.
can afford costs this much.
Right.
You start thinking about things a little bit different.
Modifying
Um,
some
correct.
details.
Like, do they really need the whole year or just half a year? But I really started thinking about what type of product do I want to have and what quality of product did I want to have. And within that, I was able to narrow down some local manufacturers first that I at least could get some samples from. And that way I had an idea of, again, pricing, what it would look like. I then had my first proofs from them because I was asking them for samples. Most of them were giving them to me free. So then I had a bunch of samples of my actual designs being printed. So now I'm looking at a physical product, which even in that aspect gave me momentum. It's like you're holding
Mm,
that you've waited so long to hold, and it may be a sample, but it's still yours.
right.
Um, Even within that, I'm like, oh my God, I have this in my hand. I want to do this one. I want this one. I want to like that. And so you really start thinking about what is it that you require. So it took a little while, a lot of labor, time consuming work. I was working full time. So a lot of times that was my lunch break. I'm thinking
Mm,
about who can I hit, get to in 30 minutes and get back.
mm.
And I was gone a lot of the time, and it was so crazy because my employer, they would be like, "Oh, you want to hang out with us for lunch?" I'm like, "I'm over here trying to build a business, and y'all
He's
just don't
like,
even know it."
right. It's like,
I
yeah,
really
not today.
just not today. Not happen. But a lot of that went into my lunch break. A lot of that legwork went into my lunch break, and just going around talking to people, understanding. I had a few manufacturers that actually broke down to me the paperweights. What's different?
Mm-hmm.
Again, being a consumer, I knew which ones I liked because, for instance, my pen didn't smear, or I could use a highlighter and it wouldn't go through.
Mm,
But I wasn't thinking about that on the other flip side. And so when they started teaching me this is how what type of paper it is, then now I know if I feel something like, oh yeah, this is the paper, like this is it. But that wasn't a skill that I had prior to. So even being able to learn on that additional side, different things, and really looking at it from a different view really helped me out in the very beginning. And so I've actually been using a local printer. I would say 90% of the time. There's a few things that I've had huge orders. We vaguely spoke about as far as the retailers. Some of those huge orders actually do have to be outsourced.
mm.
But for the most part, I honestly still use a lot of my local contacts because they were the ones who even taught me the ropes. Those
Right.
relationships.
So it's
Yeah,
just kind of a thank you too, right? And helps the local economy
exactly. Those
also.
there, and they understand when they've saw the progress. They
Right.
saw it, know what I like, they know what I don't like, and so if things change, they're like, Alicia, I gotta tell you, like, we gotta change this. I'm like, now you already know I don't want that. So what can we really
Right.
do? But it's like they are a part of the team, honestly, at the end of the day. So it's been really interesting.
So this is amazing because okay, you do this work, you stick to it, and you get this product out there. And so how do you get from there, right? Not even getting the first sale yet to
Mm-hmm.
getting into retail stores. And of course, people as you're listening to this, the grind went into it, so it's going to sound real fast, but
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of work went into it. So I'm just
It
curious what that evolution looked like.
I don't even have a word for it, honestly. It's literally day and night. but in a good way. It was, like you said, it was definitely a grind. We had been in business almost 4 years before we had any contact with retailers. But even then, I'll be completely honest with you, that was not on my radar.
Mm,
I had that doubt moment again. I
mm,
had that I'm just a small business. I'll do what I can locally. I'll ship nationwide, and that's cool, and I'm good with that.
mm.
In my head, I wasn't there yet. Reality was I had probably been there for a while.
Right.
And
Sales
just
and popularity.
correct, and
Yeah.
just really didn't know it. And I was counting myself out. During the pandemic, a lot happened. Obviously, a lot of businesses changed in drastic ways, either positive or negative.
Mm.
But we had slowed down. In my head, once the pandemic hit, and it really hit hard, what was that, April?
Oh, because people really
Um,
weren't working,
correct.
so
No
they
one
weren't
was working. And so
yeah.
in my head, again, I'm looking at this from a marketing standpoint. So I'm like, I don't want to be talking about being organized and having plans when this isn't in anybody's plan. And so I just
Right.
stopped. I stopped everything. Like I just stopped. I stopped posting. I just was like, this is. It was just a weird space because
Mhm.
again, I didn't want to seem ungrateful for everything that had continued to flow for me.
Mm,
And in that same breath, I didn't want to be tone deaf to
mhm.
the chaos that was going on for so many other people.
Yeah.
And so it was really hard to even think about how do I move forward? How do I talk about being organized or having a plan or writing in a planner or getting your life together when this wasn't on anybody's radar? Everything. I pretty much just shut down shop in my head. I just didn't do anything. If I had a few orders coming in here or there, I did those, but I didn't do any marketing, any pub, any nothing. And so I completely forgot about the fact that people are now at home with their kids and their spouse, and life is way more chaotic than it was ever been before. And they
Yeah.
need to hear that there's a way to at least in some small way feel organized in your brain. And
Mhm.
it took a minute. It took about a month and a half for that to come across because, again, mind you, I'm living that life too. I have a
Yeah.
4-year-old crazy. Me and my husband and I working from home. We've never worked from home at the same time. There's food that has to be delivered or ordered, and I mean, it's just crazy. And so I was like, oh my God, like everybody's living like this. And why aren't you talking about this?
Mhm.
So it, in that moment where I was like, oh crap, I need to actually say something. And I knew at that point what that reach was going to be. How was I going to do that? Well, I'm in the same situation too. So let's just be real honest. Let's just talk about it from your point of view. And so I started doing that. And it was so crazy that even within, it was almost right when I realized what my product was
Yeah.
that everyone else did it too.
Mm.
And so we're usually in the slower season in the summer because we're usually closing out the planners for the last year. We're starting to ramp up for the next year. We're trying to get out a few more products for the fall. And we're usually in design mode. But last summer was the biggest chunk of months that I had
Wow.
in my 4 years of business.
Yeah.
Again, everyone figured out I need to be organized. And if I never need
Mhm.
to be organized before, I need to be organized now.
Mhm.
Huge, huge, huge in our sales, in our mentions and people buying products and shouting us out. It was just a lot. On top of that, we also had a lot of the social events that were going on with Black Lives Matter,
Oh,
with
yeah.
businesses, and so we were getting a lot of interest from those groups as well. And so next thing I know, I just get an email in my box, and I'm just sitting here on a random, and I see the email. Mind you, I'm a huge shopper for TJ Maxx. That is my store. So I see the email come through, and then the ending of the email says TJM. And I'm like, the only TJM I know is TJ Maxx.
You're like, "Is this for real, for real? Let me
Yeah,
check
like I
this
see it.
email. Is this a
Correct. I
legit
see it. I
email?"
literally went to I went to the email to see what the email was because I'm like, this has to be spam. And it was very vague. It was very like, hey, we're interested in your product. Let's jump on a call. And I'm like, I just stare at the email for 10 minutes. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I screamed, of course, to my husband, like, "Come here, you gotta see this." But it was literally something so simple as someone from their corporate office had bought a product and took it in the office.
Wow.
And that for me was it was just breathtaking because
Yeah.
again, it shows you that you never know who your customers are.
Yep.
And you
Who's
have to be
watching?
correct. You have to be mindful of who is watching you, and you just never know when people are speaking of you when you're not in the room, and the way that they're
Mhm.
speaking when you're not in the room. So from what I heard, she bought the product from me. She loved even the way I shipped it, the inserts that I put in it, the way that I wrote a little note. I mean, it was something again that I had completely forgot that I do, and I just do it on the regular. But in this aspect to her, it was special. And when she got to the office and she's using it, and of course everyone's asking, "Oh my God, where did you get this from?" And then there was a conversation of, "We need this in the stores. Let's reach out."
Mm.
And it was just crazy. It was literally crazy to me that it happened that fast. And I think the evolution of it was I had been preparing for such a moment and never knew that it was right around the corner. I had started looking at retailers for large distribution. I had started looking at what new products I had, what were people looking at. I just started a thought process that I didn't know why I was thinking about these things. When they reached out to me, it was like, okay.
This is it.
This is,
This is it.
but in
It's like exciting and scary too because depending on how many they order, right? Like that's a
well,
whole other ball game right there.
and that was it. That was the thing. So
Right.
it was a bunch of excitement, and then reality slammed in, and they were like, "Hey, mind you, let me just start. Let me back up. I only order maybe the max of different products I order is maybe about 300 to 500.
Mm,
Again, because I use a local printer, if I need more stuff, it's easily accessible.
yeah.
So I never order huge amounts because I usually keep them in house and I can get them, in a good amount of time. So go from ordering 300 to 500 to TJ Maxx saying, "Hey, we want about 10,000." And I looked at the phone. I'm like, let me make this bigger. Let me make sure I'm counting all the zeros. You want how many? And you want who to do this? And it was humbling in a good way, but it was humbling
Yeah.
because in that moment, again, now I'm having to shift. And my
Right.
plan was no longer my plan. I'm having to shift and I'm having to shift quickly because now
Yeah.
I have to figure out, A, can my printer print these many? How long is it going to take? How are we paying for this? Who's shipping them out? How are we getting them to them? When they get to them, what are they going to look like? I didn't have certain things in place because I had been doing everything myself, even shipping. So I'm thinking like, oh my God, logistically, they can't pick them up from my house. So where are they getting them from? Are we shipping it to them? There's so many questions that start to go into play. And you're like, oh my God, I do this by myself. Do they realize I'm one person? Like,
Like, how am I gonna get this done?
who do they think I am? But it was a good thing because I think that I would have continued to play small ball.
Yeah.
I
It's a
would
good
not
challenge to
have,
have, right? Yeah.
correct. I would not have shifted that quickly had I not been forced to.
Mm.
And I definitely take that as a blessing.
Mm.
God knew what I needed because He knows that I usually will just walk on the edge and I'll keep walking on the edge until He pushes me over. So that was kind of my pushover moment for me. And it was so crazy because, again, like I said, even in that moment, it was like, do y'all realize I'm just me? But that same week, I want to say, if it was in the same week, it was within the 7 to 10 days that they reached out to me. I got another email. This email, the ending of it says at People Magazine. And I'm
Oh,
like, you have got to
you're
be
like,
kidding me.
what's
Like,
going on?
who is putting my email address on spam account? And again, I'm like, Josh, you gotta come see this. You're not gonna
Right.
believe it. Like, I promise to God, I'm not lying. It's happening again. And People Magazine reached out. They wanted to feature us in their back to school spread. Again, like I
Ooh.
said, the environment had changed at that time. A lot of kids weren't going back to school, they were doing homeschool. Families were trying to figure out what was going on.
Mm.
And or virtual school and homeschool. And they were reaching out to see if they could feature our notepad in their back to school spread for products that families need. And I'm like, yeah, of course, sure, whatever.
Sure.
And she, yeah, we're gonna put it online for the People Magazine online blog, or however they worded it. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. And then they never said anything else. So I'm like, all right. So about 2 weeks went by, and I emailed her back. I'm like, hey, just wondering if y'all had picked which products you were going to include on the magazine on the line. And she was like, yeah, we did. We chose yours. The magazine comes out on Monday. I'm like, wait a minute, wait. The
Like, I
magazine
thought this
comes out
was
on
online.
Monday, or is
Wait,
it going online? It's like, she's like, oh, it's going to be on both. And I'm like blown. Like my mind is
wow.
just like, like just up in the air. And I'm like, this is that moment where everything you've ever worked for is coming into fruition.
Mm-hmm.
And even when you think that those nights where nothing that you did mattered, it was probably way bigger than you ever know it. And you may not see it for 4 or 5 or 6 years down the line.
Mm-hmm.
But every little detail, every little aspect, everything that you do has a reason and a purpose. And like I said before, even if you don't realize who's watching you, who's paying attention, there are people who are paying attention, watching you, and speaking on your behalf, even when you're not there. I have
Mm-hmm.
absolutely no idea where People Magazine found me at. I don't know if someone in their office found me or if they have been following my Instagram. I really have the slightest idea. And I always want to say that none of this was something that I did, because a lot of times when when you're reaching out to magazines or retailers, usually you're the one reaching out, like, "Hey,
Right.
I have a product." Like, I didn't do
Please
any
feature
reaching.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, please, I'll pay you. But it's like I didn't do any reaching. All that reaching was done behind the scenes, and so to me, it was like a really interesting experience for me, because it was like, man, did enough in the forefront to let
Mm-hmm.
my product and my business speak for itself. And even
Right.
when I thought I wasn't doing enough, I was doing enough.
Yep.
And so it was a lot. I won't lie and say it was easy, but it was definitely a lot to shift my mindset, even at that point, from I may ship out 2 or 3 things a day to, hey, we need 10,000 by next week.
That
That,
is a
like, that
huge jump.
mindset is completely correct. That mindset is completely different. So it's been very, very mind boggling, even to me sometimes. Like when I first see my products in the store, it was like, oh my God, are you for real right now? Like, I'm walking in my store and I see my stuff. And of course, I move it all to the front of the aisles.
Right,
But it's
right.
like,
Like front and
I'm like,
center. Don't miss these
why
people
y'all
right
got this
here.
back there? And I need these in the front. I need these in the front, please. But it's even in those moments, like I walk through there just to see if they have something of mine on the
Yeah.
shelf. And the days that I do see it, even a year from when it first launched, it's still very, very humbling to say, oh my God, these are my products. And somebody in this aisle is going to walk down and say, oh, this is
Ooh,
exactly
I
what I
need this.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's like, it's so crazy because I get messages all the time. I actually got one last night from a lady that said, I got your product at TJ Maxx. And then I ended up going to your website and realizing that you look like me. And like,
Oh,
that felt so much different. And
yeah.
and even in that breath, like she said she ordered more products just from my actual website. But she was just saying, I didn't realize that we had products like that in TJ Maxx.
Representation matters. Yeah.
Heck, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes, yes, and yes.
Sometimes you hear stories of people have been working hard, they get that moment and they crash and burn. I remember seeing one story. I think it was somebody who had like face cream or something like that, and then they blew up and they just weren't able to keep up with their orders. And then they just got this horrible reputation because they just couldn't make it work. And so,
Yeah.
my question for you is like for the listeners out there who might run into a situation where maybe just by happenstance, someone somewhere, Will Smith or something, gives them like a shout
Mhm.
out just randomly in the stories. And then all of a sudden, their business blows up. Any advice for how someone can mentally deal with that, and then also, I don't know, organize themselves, or a good way of going about research so they can quickly figure out how to then meet that demand, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah. So I think one of the main things for me in that time was delegation. Like I
Mhm.
said, I've always been, this is my business, me and my husband, and sometime my kid. That we're the owners. My son will get boxes for us and take them downstairs and throw them in the car to take to the post office. That's us. That's what we do. However, in those moments where things got huge real fast, I
Mhm.
I had to ask for help. I didn't have a choice but to ask for help
Mhm.
because, like you said, I was either going to burn and like completely miss the opportunity. Like the opportunity,
Mhm.
you're just not ready, so I got to go somewhere else, or I was gonna figure it out, and that was really hard for me. I'm not even gonna lie to you. It was hard to ask for help, number one, but then also delegate something that was so much of me. It's so important to
Mhm.
me. I want things to look how I want them to look. I know that if I do them myself, they'll get done correctly. So
Mhm.
in that moment, sometimes it's hard to think about what can I hand off? What can
Mhm.
be done? Who can help me? And there's a lot of times where people are literally saying, "Let me know if you need help," and we're going, "No, no, no, don't even worry about it." And
Right,
who really
right.
do needs the help?
You
It's
need the
like,
help.
I do
Accept
need
the
the help.
help.
Take the help. But I think one of those main things is to really understand that you can't do it all. Even if you have a small team, maybe in that
Mhm.
moment, even your small team cannot do it all.
Mm.
So you have to be diligent enough to understand what it takes to grow. And that usually means getting a team.
Yeah.
And even for me, and speaking for myself, I don't have a team on a regular. However, when I get those huge orders or I have something big coming up or I'm doing a market or something, all of a sudden set up and all this other stuff, then I know who my team is and I can
Yeah.
utilize people. But I personally don't have a team 100% of the time, and that's okay. But if at least that these are the people that I can count on. If something goes haywire, I can reach out to these people. Even starting to understand that when you're not in that moment, preparing for that moment, just
Mhm.
to have those people on hand. Like if something goes crazy, I'm calling you. Don't not answer the phone. That usually means I'm like on a 911 call. Like I really, really need you. But I think that big piece is learning that you can't do everything. So if that
Mhm.
means you have to outsource something, even if it's just your social media, all of a sudden you got all this stuff. People are tagging you. Will Smith shouted you out. Now everyone's tagging you, but you don't have time to hit up everyone or every comment that they're saying. Give that to somebody else and worry about the orders.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
even in that, if you can't worry about the orders all the time, then have someone do the orders. And maybe you just handle writing the notes to everyone that goes in the shipments. Or you worry about making sure that the printer is printing the product correctly, or you're doing the quality control, or whatever that piece is. Being able to break that down and say, this is what I can do, and this is what someone else can be better at. I think that's a
Yeah.
huge thing to really understand when you kind of transition between those two is you may be able to do it, but that doesn't mean you're doing it effectively.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're doing it with the quality that you want it to be done in. So within that same thought process, is there someone that can start finding those
Mhm.
and understanding that I may not need you 100% of the time, but when I do, I already know who will have my back. I already know who my team and my supporters are in that aspect. And even if there's consultants or freelancers or something that you utilize, just having those relationships already built ahead of time was something that, again, it pushed me forward faster. Again, my
Mhm.
printer, because he's local, I just went in and said, hey, look, let me talk to you. Let's sit down and chat real quick. Let me tell you what we got going on. But he was able to then reach out to one of his partners who has a bigger shop,
Mm.
who has a
Okay.
bigger situation, who said we can do it, but we'll just do it through his office, and then we'll just print everything and kind of work back around to you. So
Mm.
even having that relationship had been built for years before he realized that I was going to be a bigger company than I was.
Right.
So I already had that relationship built with them. I already had that relationship built with the graphic designer when things started getting haywire and I couldn't design the things that I was trying to get done in the time that I was wanting to get them done. I had graphic designers and I was like, okay, look, I need to edit these planners. I need to get it done in the next week. I really don't have time. Life happens. Like,
Right.
can we get these edited? What can we do? Like, I already had those things kind of in place not necessarily, like I said, full time, but I still had those relationships that were built up to where I knew where to go.
Mm-hmm. I think that is going to be gold for someone out there. You're going to have them ready and prepared.
Yes.
And before I get to the first wrap up question, one other question that I get from people a lot is about marketing. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
be remiss to not ask you, in the last several years, are there any marketing tips you would pass on to people? Because some people have like amazing products, but they're just not getting discovered. They're making things, but not necessarily putting them out there in the world in the right way. So, any tips for those folks?
I think a big thing when it comes to marketing is being where your customers are.
Mm.
It's really easy to design something that you think is great and then to realize it's not as great as you thought it was because the people that would use it don't even know that it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And meeting them where they are, I think that is one of the things that I had to learn early on because, again, I wasn't a designer, I wasn't in marketing. So even once I completed my product, I was looking at it from the eyes of someone that already uses a planner because I had been using planners for years. So I'm thinking,
Mm-hmm.
this is what they want, this is where they are, this is the people I'm going to talk to. I quickly realized that even though my market is people that already plan, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of my market is people who have never planned ever before.
Right.
So then that changes things because now not only am I trying to sell something, I'm trying to sell a different lifestyle almost. I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
get you organized when you've never written anything before. Or I'm trying to, get you to write things down when you're using your phone calendar. So there's a different aspect to that marketing piece, I think, where you have to go where that person is, and really
Mm-hmm.
understanding who your target market is will help you do that. So what I
Mm-hmm.
did in my instance is I started going to different either meetups or social events where I felt like my target person would be,
Mm-hmm.
and I just started talking to people. And they would either tell me, yes, my life is hectic, I'm doing this and that. And I'm like, oh, okay, how do you organize that? Oh, I just do whatever I want to do, and if it gets done. But I started to hear the conversations of who uses products, who don't, why don't they use them. I know one of the big things for me in the very beginning was I love using planners, but if it's too big, I can't carry it in my purse. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I have to now think about my sizing, which may not have been on my radar before.
Mm.
If I leave it here, then I don't have anything, or I start off really good and then I forget about it. Okay, well, then I'm trying to think about what are those things that keep people motivated? What can I insert into my products that will keep them coming back? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
completely changed what they're thinking. They, again, like you said, they may start, but if they don't finish, then it just kind of defeats the purpose. So, how can I keep them coming back? So, I really started looking at, from a marketing standpoint, where are those customers? But if you don't know what that customer looks like, then it's hard to
Mm-hmm.
place them where they are.
Yeah.
um, and so I think one of the biggest things for business owners, especially small business owners, is to know who your target customer is, honestly, before you even start your product building.
Mm. That's
If you're
fair.
already at that point, then take a step back for a second and research. What are people saying about your product if you already have one? What do they like and don't like? Even doing like a case study. That was another thing that I did when I first got my first samples out. I sent them out to about 10 people and said, hey, just use it for a week and tell me what you think. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when I did that, I realized that the sizing that I had at the time was too small. People were
Mm.
bigger than I thought they were, and now they don't have enough space.
Mm.
Some of the paper wasn't, how I wanted it to be. The binding was coming off. So there were different things that you start noticing when you really start using the product or having someone else use the products, that you'll get that feedback. And as
Mm-hmm.
soon as you get that feedback, you can start kind of shifting your marketing to those certain things. So, for instance, like our notepads, I before I even designed our notepads, I would get so many people that said, "I love the thought of a planner. I always start one, never finish it. The dates, once I skip a week, and I don't want to go back."
Mm-hmm. This like it's dead then. Then they have maybe a month or two done and then they just let it go.
March comes, if they're still working on it, they're good. They're not
Right.
next year. I had so many people say that to me, especially out at vending events or things like that. And so I started thinking, what kind of product can I have that still gives them that sense of organization, but isn't dated? Because at
Mm-hmm.
that you can't say you haven't used it, because even if you don't use it tomorrow, you can still use it on Friday.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that was a thing with when it came to feedback of saying, okay, well, this is what people are saying. Now, how can I take that and now market something else? So now, when I first launched my first notepad, it was like, for all of those of you who said you couldn't keep on track with these calendar
Here
dates,
you go, my
here you
friends.
go. Here's all the sheets you need. They are not dated. If you skip a day, you can still go back to the next day. You can keep the sheet or tear it off. Like, I literally thought about all the things that people had said to me about why they can't use one product and created another one. So it's really important to zone into who your customers are, listen to what they're saying, listen to their feedback. Even if it's bad, you can, take something from that and really meet them where they are, not think that they're going to come to you, because that's so hard, especially with social media, of assuming, because it happens. Some people
Yeah.
do get that big break, and
Mhm.
next thing you know, they went from 0 followers to 1.7 million overnight.
Right.
But
But
it's
for
not
the
normal.
most people, the other
Most
99% of people on the ground.
went from 0 to 3. Um,
Right.
so so it's definitely a struggle, and it puts you in a sense of comparison.
Yeah.
And I think even myself, I've ran into that where I'm looking at my numbers and I'm going, dang, I don't have 15,000 people following me, but so and so does. But then in that same breath, I had to say, okay, but I'm in a retailer and she's not. So my numbers clearly didn't matter.
Right. Right. It's the
So,
quality of the
you have
product,
to,
right? Yeah.
correct. It's quality, it's what you're bringing, it's how you're, marketing your things, what you're bringing to the table that someone else may not be bringing. So it's really understanding that and not always looking at the numbers. Granted, they are slightly important when you're looking at the insights and like who's
Yeah.
buying your products, who sees your page, things like that. But other than that, really just understanding, if I was using my own product, what would I think about it? Or where would I
Hmm.
find my product? Let's just say you're doing soap. If I'm doing soaps and body balms and things like that, I may not go to some other type of conference and try to sell that when it's just not the market for it. The people
Hmm.
are not looking for that. They're
Right.
looking for what they came there. So it just really depends on what your product is, but really understanding, where do those people shop? Where do they go?
Yeah.
What type of places are they at? And meeting them there. And then from there, it just overflows a little bit, because then you get customers who are then word of mouth. And honestly,
Yes.
been one of the things that's been my growth for me, I know for a fact, is word of mouth. It's word of mouth and actually using the product and saying, oh my God, this really changed my life. And then,
Hmm.
and what is it? Where did you get it from? So just really understanding that it may take a little legwork. It really will. I know 2018 for me was very, very busy. I hadn't really been out doing markets or like local events or anything like that, just because I did have a small child. But at that point, I felt more comfortable of getting out, and so I just went out. Like every weekend, every other weekend, I was at a market, and it was just, if I wasn't selling anything, I was just trying. Even if I sold 2 or 3 products, I was like, let me just get my name out there. I have to
Get
get
it
my name
out
out
there.
there. My business cards out there. I have to. So I was literally from October through December through Christmas of 2018. I was at every market I could find that was local, just trying to be seen. And I've had people
Hmm.
and have reached out and said, I remember your market back in and I see your products in TJ Maxx, and I'm like, yeah, that was me. That was me.
I loved what you said about numbers, because I always tell people, just even the folks I've interviewed, there are people who have under 1,000 or 2,000 followers that have been able to make six figures a year, and there are people who have 60,000 followers and they're still trying to figure out how to make money with all those followers. So the numbers matter, but it's not just about the numbers. So I love what you said about that, and I'm glad you just said it. See, people, I didn't even ask a leading question. It just came out. And I love what you said about the markets too, because I think sometimes people get caught up in, they have to have all these clients and all these consumers when it's like just
Mhm.
one sale at a time. You go out there to the market, you sell 3 products. Yeah, you're out there 3 hours or whatever, but you just never know how your products are going to change the life of those 3 people, the lives of those 3 people, or who those 3 people are, right? They could be a
Correct.
TJ Maxx representative.
Mhm.
So yes, I mean, thank you for putting all of that out there because I think it's good for people to hear because they do get caught up in that comparison trap and not thinking they're good enough because they only sold a few products at a fair
Mhm.
or people aren't like following them. And I remember I heard someone on a podcast once say, and I thought this was great. If you have 500, Instagram followers, you think it's nothing, but imagine being in a room with 500 people and you're on the stage.
Mhm.
You then would think it's something.
Right.
Social media has us all messed up, right?
Mhm.
If the normal person had to walk on a stage with 500 people, they'd be nervous because that's a lot
Correct.
of people
Mhm.
that have their eyes on you, looking at what you're doing, appreciating you. So,
Mhm.
yeah, it's just thinking about it a little different.
Exactly, and I think, I mean, even for myself, yeah, if I was sitting on stage in front of people, I would be stuttering right now. And it's so funny because I'm very personable. I'm such an extrovert, and then you put me in a room with a bunch of people, and I'm like, "Hi, my name's Alicia. I'm on our page 11 paper." It's like, it's like they're like, "You're only," and they just mumble. But that's just, again, like you said, it's a different way of looking at it because that would be the moment that, yeah, I wouldn't shine the same way that I would if I was at a market speaking to someone one on one. And
Mhm.
again, that's been where I've reached out to people and had relationships, and I've seen them, those same people at different markets, and they go, "Oh my God, I remember you from last time." But it's, even if they didn't buy a product, they know my face, they know my name, or they know my business. And if they don't use the products, if they ever think about a planner and someone says, "Oh my God, I need a planner," they're gonna say, "Oh my God, I
Yep.
met this girl at the market. She is so nice. She has plans. Go check out her website."
Yep.
And again, like you say, you just never know who it is. You never know who it's gonna get to or where your name is being spoke of when you're not in the room. So
Okay. So, couple wrap up questions. First question, it's funny. This is my standard question, but it's funny asking someone who creates tools for organization. But how do you stay organized? Any tools, software, techniques that you use to stay sane?
I mean, well, page 11 paper goods. No, I'm like,
Right.
of course, shameless plug. But no, I definitely do. I do use my products faithfully. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'm looking at my planner and my notepad right now. But what I did find to be very useful for me as a household is Notion. So that's an app that I use with my husband because he's a planner in a sense, but he's not like I am. Like, I'm OD planner. He's, yeah, we're gonna get it done, we'll get it done, and then he'll forget. And he doesn't like writing things down at all, and he loves everything to be on his phone. So I had to think of, can we use to where we're on the same page? If we have events coming up or appointments or people coming to the house, or whatever the case, that we can see all of this at the same time. So we actually use an app called Notion that is pretty much a, really, it's a clean slate to however you want to use it. But we use it for just a daily to-do list. So we have a weekly to-do list that we put everything on there daily that we need to get done. And then we also put like our tasks. So if there's just simple things, like even right now, I'm looking at them like I have to fold these clothes up that have been sitting in the dryer for like the last 3 days. Like I have to do that. But we put those type of things on there. That way, again, we can have conversations. We can understand what is our week looking as a family, as a household. If my son has sports or something, like, what are we doing? Who's taking him where? How are we managing different times? And so, really understanding where our time is going as a household is really important to us because I think sometimes, again, you can come and go and not realize that the other person was doing something or that they needed something from you because we're also wrapped up in what we have going on. So we decided to start using Notion to really just outline our days, our weeks, and then we also have a sheet on there that we have our yearly plans, like what are our goals as a family. And so we always try to look at those either weekly or monthly just to make sure that we're still in line with what we are saying that we wanted to get accomplished before the end of the year. So we have all of our resolutions and things written out on there. It's very organized, but like I said, it's really a clean slate. You can use it for literally anything and everything. You set up the pages how you want them to be set up. So you really can use them for creating something, for to-do list, for a calendar, for a grocery list, for mapping out a
Everything.
vision board. I mean, you literally can use it for anything. But I found it very helpful because it gives us like a dashboard
Yeah.
for our days. And then, like I said, he's able to see it on his phone when he's running around, and I can see it on my computer. If he adds something, I can see it. If we change something, we can see it. So it gives us a sense of one spot for everything. And then, even though I still use my planner and write things down, I can still see his stuff and understand that, what we have coming up.
So I just want to, for the listeners out there who've been listening a long time, they're going to think that this is a trick because all I talk about is Notion. But I
Are you
promise you
serious?
guys, I even have like a free template I offer people because I love it so much.
This is not a setup.
It promise people it's not a setup. But you heard it here from Elisha. And I'm an analog person too, right? Like I love a
Mhm.
good paper planner. And so, but Notion I use for like other stuff, like all the things that you named are so amazing. But I love it too because you can modify it to use it the way you want to. Whereas
Mhm.
some other digital time management software is very it's like structured, and so either you use
Yeah.
it the way they set it up or that's it. But Notion, you literally have that freedom if you take the time. There's like a little bit of a learning curve.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm just saying, people, you've heard it. You have heard it
Get to
here.
it.
Use it
Look,
with
get to
your
it now. Notion, if y'all want to hit us up with a check, you can.
it's
But
right.
yes, definitely
Notion if
look
you
into
out there.
it. She's there. But no, definitely look into it. Like I said, I mean, even for me, I definitely didn't know that you talk about it all the time. So that's funny. But we probably just started using it about 6 months ago. And it took about a month to get it where I wanted it to be, just to understand, like you said, how to set up the pages, how to make them, usable. But these last 5 months have definitely been very, very more structured for me
Yeah.
because I am married to someone who's not as structured as I am mentally. So
Yeah.
it gave us a middle ground. Okay, you
Shared
don't have to
space.
decorate this page and make it look all pretty. Like, just put your to-do stuff on there, and that's all I ask you to do.
Right.
So it's
Right.
I
So
at
I know.
least can see it. Yeah, I at least can see it. We at least can talk about it, but you don't have to design it and all this. I'll worry about that, but you just need to put your stuff on there. So it's definitely been a tool that has really helped us become somewhat organized as a family.
No, I love it. Okay. And do you have a hobby? Do you have time for a hobby?
I was like, not really. No, I actually do, and it's really simple. So I absolutely love photography.
Ooh,
Um,
yes.
I love photography and interior design. So usually, if I'm not taking pictures of something, I'm trying to find interior design stuff, or I'm looking at like homes. We often drive around just looking at new home builds, structures, architecture stuff, just homes, period, honestly. But if there are any open homes, I love going in and just looking at how they decorate, interior design and stuff like that. So we do try to do that as much as we can. Where we are right now in Dallas, it's a huge market for new home builders and stuff like that. So it's easy to find it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we just be driving around like, y'all open? Can we come in? But it's something so simple that even during those drives, it just calms me for a second. Like, I just need to see some interior design, or I need to be somewhere taking some photos. But I love doing that. I don't get to do it as often, obviously, as I want. But when I am in that zone, it's definitely freeing for me.
I love it. And last but not least, where can the listeners find you, your social media accounts, and where can they, of course, purchase your planners and your notebooks?
Yes, yes, yes. Instagram and Facebook at Page 11 Paper Goods. My website is www.page11papergoods.com. You can find our product. Well, you can find our notepads at TJ Maxx and Marshalls. and also on Target.com as of recently. um,
Woo!
so we have our notepads are in all the retailers, and then we usually just keep our planners and our smaller products in house. So you definitely can purchase those on our website.
Well, thank you very much, Alicia. This has been a great conversation. Loved hearing about your journeys. So thanks for sharing all the things. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure to chat with you today.
Oh my goodness. So I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Alicia was amazing. She dropped so many jewels. I mean, this is a good one, folks. I mean, and I hope you are walking away inspired because this is a great example of how hard work and determination can make your dreams come true. And I love everything she's done. I love seeing her stuff in stores. It really like when I see it, I get a little tingle in my stomach because it just makes me proud. I love supporting women businesses and just to see someone that I've followed make it, so to speak, is a really good feeling. So make sure that you support page 11. Of course, all the links will be over at nachesnow.com/141, just in case you didn't get to write them down. And for the Notion, you guys know I love me some Notion. I love it, love it, love it. I have a free template over at nachesnow.com/Notion, along with a video on how to use Notion for those things that you do want to keep digitally. So be sure to check that out. But anywho, I hope you guys enjoy this. Oh my God, counting down to the new year. But don't worry, I have one more episode for you guys. So stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe. Remember, sharing is caring, my friends. Head on over to Apple Podcasts if you're an Apple person and rate me 5 stars and leave a comment if you'd like. If you're over on YouTube, please give me a thumbs up. Also, leave a comment, and wherever you are listening, subscribe, 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 my friend. Thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate you all. And if you ever have any ideas for topics for future episodes, DM me, email me. I'm here for you, lovelies. All right, take care. Bye.